Hey there, Johnny Pin Sports. If you've been listening to my channel, you know I can't stand Jason Garrett, and I thought this would be just possibly one of the best days of my life. But it just kind of feels like this was a little too late. But maybe it's a step in the right direction. So it was brought to my attention last night that Joe Judge has had an interesting press conference, to say the least. And it sounded like kind of like the plays that they were game playing and didn't show up on the field. So that just kind of piqued my attention, and it kind of made me expecting this move here. Actually, BMAC comes on my channel the last few hours. We've been sitting there just waiting, anticipating. Hey, we got what we wanted, but the thing I've really focused on my channel is that early in a game, if the plays are going well and the script's good, Jason Garrett tends to have a good game. Now things get tough. You get a couple negative plays. Garrett seems to revert into the same just awful play calls, the same 3 or 4 play calls he does over and over. And it just, honestly, I don't mean to be mean, but it just feels like he's been exposed the last year and a half on here as a coach. Maybe he could be a head coach but I mean, he needs to be hands off with an offense in 2021. I'm sympathetic to the situation he had here. Lots of young players, tons of injuries both years he was here. But you cannot be this inept, even with so many players going in and out. Especially in the red zone. And Judge really harped on it in his press conference today. So if you take Joe Judge for his word, Jason Garrett's fired because of his red zone play calling, and Judge gets blame in all this bullshit as well. Last season's offense, at a minimum, was okayed by Judge, so he has fault in this. Now, also, I found a little thing where he said that the entire offensive coaching staff sat down and just built the entire new playbook here. Well, pretty much half a scheme. With a lot of their zones, they sprinkled in a bunch of West Coast principles and plays in there. Now, we haven't seen them really any of that since the Cowboys game because of all the injuries. I don't know why they didn't go back to it. I guess they went a little bit to it this week, but I don't know. It just seemed like the passing early in the year was working, and we're back to what we were doing last year, and I think you're seeing the end result. We're going backwards. It just boggles my mind now. All the coaches sat down, Joe Judge's first year, Jason Garrett. They watched Daniel Jones' rookie tape, and they pulled out curl flats out of it. And they built an entire scheme around it. It's unbelievable to me. I don't know who came up with that, but everybody's up to be jobless real quick if it don't change. So, listen, I'm not sure how much changes we're actually going to get from this move, but I got a little glimmer of hope. Joe Judge in his press conference today at 4, he talked about how the scheme, it really is going to change the rest of the season. Obviously not all of it, most of it, and you're not going to get a complete scheme change, in 1 week, but in 3-4 weeks down another month down the road here, we might be looking at a completely different thing. He also talked about just weekly getting the lumps of more plays in there. And listen, if Freddie Kitchens can get this offense back to where it was at the beginning of the season, I think it will relax me a little bit. I know it'll relax some of the fan base. Maybe we can finish it strong, which I always prefer. I always think it's much better for your franchise to finish strong and win as many games as you possibly can. Tanking does not help teams in the short run. What tanking does, it gets your head coach, your entire coaching staff fired, and at that point, you get new GMs coming in. There's no telling what can happen. So another thing I want to talk about is this firing, in my opinion, is all about the players. The effort was awful on the offensive side yesterday. We saw Judge in his presser after the Bucs game completely put it on the coaches. And he openly said he was frustrated for the players. That statement from Judge was made to keep the players from quitting. And in my opinion, Judge had to fire Gettleman or he was going to lose the locker room. It was obvious to me. Now the media will spin it as Judge is throwing Garrett under the bus, and he's the scapegoat. I know that's what they always go to because it's an easy take. You don't need to. It's a surface level thing. You don't need to really dig in and investigate it much. But I'm strong on this opinion. I feel like I have some data in just the last couple press conferences. So that's why he's talking the way he is. And there's also, I can't remember, the one punter that's on NFL Network or something, the one crazy one. Him and all his buddies, they talk to a lot of players, and they have a relationship with Mara. They hang out, around teams and owners. And they said the players have been grumbling. The offensive players have been grumbling for weeks and weeks and weeks now about this coaching staff. So, yeah, I mean, I just think Joe Judge had a choice: lose the locker room or fire Jason Garrett. This is it. Another thing that really worries me is just, to me, this seems like this all happened because ownership kind of forced Garrett on Judge, because Judge is he's young and he's a first-time head coach. And of course, Mara has a relationship with him. That's something we see over and over with ownership, previous relationships, making clouding decisions and all that. It seems like just every time there's something that stinks and don't work on this team, it has a connection to the owners. I'm not going to sit here and harp about it at all. There's nothing we can do about it. Like it's been said a million times. But I just feel like this is a change, and the front office is going to be replaced this year. Possibly the head coach comes back. There's going to be wholesale changes. It's a perfect time for John Mayer to learn from some of these mistakes and change himself. Listen, I love the Mara family. They really do have a special place in my heart. And I know John Mara loves the team. And, he's a fan like us. And say you're a fan, right? Imagine if you own the Giants. You're gonna be meddling. And it would be so hard, especially if you're seeing you're watching college games and you're thinking, oh my God, can you imagine this guy? Oh my God, Saquon Barkley. But you can't do that. You can't do that. You gotta run it as a business. And the smart business moves let the football guys do the football. Love you, John. Obviously, he ain't listening, but changes, time to change. But really, I don't want to give Joe Judge too much credit here, but he really nailed it a few weeks ago. He said the fish things from the head down. Bing bong. I mean, it's just on the money. One more thing, I don't want to forget it while it's on the top of my head. But I think the number one problem with Garrett, the reason why he's gone, is the scheme. The second glaring reason to me is not getting the ball into the playmakers' hands. I mean, it's criminal that no plays get drawn up for Galladay. There's just no excuse. And the only time I can really think of plays to go specifically to Galladay is in RPOs. I mean, that's an insult. That's an insult to what the Giants are paying Galladay, and honestly, what he's achieved in the past. I don't blame him for freaking out. You can't have them. You can't have that stuff like we saw in the Bucs game. You need to come with effort. That hurts you in the long run. Hurts yourself and the team. So that's that. Hopefully, I think this change will spark him a little bit. Another thing is, we've seen Kadarius Toney in space. You give him an open field, you got as good of a chance for a touchdown as any other player in the NFL. And I stand by that. There's a lot of explosive players in the NFL nowadays. The way he can make people miss, it is a black eye on this entire offensive coaching staff. That they haven't got they haven't got any results, or they haven't even got half the results they could get at, a possibility of these players. It's unbelievable how bad this offense is. Just to leave off on a note to really kind of just seal it in, and these are concrete things to me. Just in 26 games here, the New York Giants have scored 18 points a game, and one game over 30. In the game where they scored over 30, one of the touchdowns was a defensive touchdown, so they didn't even score over 30 technically, just all offense. So I'm pretty sure Pat Shermer had 4 or 5 games over 30 points the year he was fired, and the year before all these bozos showed up. Unbelievable. Something had, I said in my video after the game, something had to be done. It was time to make some kind of changes. They did it. That narrative can be whatever it is. I think I got a pretty good idea of what's happening on this team. And listen, I've been feeling like the season's over since the Falcons game. So this ain't nothing new to me. I know some people are still holding out. Teams that we needed to lose are winning. And with this offensive line, Daniel Jones can't start playing better. If the coaching don't get better, the play calling, yeah, I know some people don't like it, but I'll be watching college games real soon. I'll be making mock drafts and dreaming about the 2 first-round picks. But that's it for me, y'all. Good news for now. It gives you maybe a slight little bit of hope that we can get a different evaluation on these players going forward. And we got 7 weeks. Listen, Joe Judge has got 7 weeks to save his job, because if it don't improve, I mean, what can you say? What when you bring back Joe Judge for the 3rd year? What are you bringing him back for? What do you have to have him for? Like, what difference does it make? Does it set the franchise back at all? I guess the only thing you can say by not bringing Joe Judge back is this will be the 3rd coach fired in 3 years. What kind of real serious head coach candidate would want to come into a situation where they don't think they have any stability at all? That's the only really downside I can see to firing Joe Judge. But I just think that there's a new GM, and it still looks like this. How can you bring any coaching staff back after what we just saw the last year and a half? But I think I harped enough. Anyways, just peace.